Hi there, my name is Alec Kasman, and I'm with Protect Ukraine Now. Protect Ukraine Now is an analytics agency specializing in military aid to Ukraine. Today, I want to talk about the financial aspect of that assistance. There are many numbers used by independent bloggers, news agencies, and government officials. Those agencies and individuals and government officials, they don't necessarily try to confuse people. However, government accounting is complicated, and it takes some time to figure out what actually is going on. Also, in many cases, government officials do not have the time to explain exactly where those numbers come from. So today, we're going to do just that. We're going to take the time to go over actual dollar amounts that went to Ukraine. Before we talk about military aid to Ukraine, I would like to thank every American. Regardless of your position for helping Ukraine, your taxpayer dollars went into that program. Without you, without that assistance, Ukraine wouldn't be standing today. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you. On protectukrainenow.org, we'll click on military aid menu and scroll down to US aid to Ukraine section. The US aid to Ukraine is appropriated by the Congress using supplemental bills. Here on the left-hand side, you can see 4 major supplemental bills that were used to fund Ukraine. The total aid to Ukraine is $113.8 billion. This aid is split further into several categories as we move to the right. The other category down here is aid that was never meant for Ukraine. This money went to US Army in Europe, global food insecurity, military aid for our allies in Europe. Some of it is for helping Ukrainian refugees in the US. Some other Department of Defense needs. So $32.9 billion down below here. This money we had to spend because Putin has started a major war in Europe. This money never went to Ukraine. Direct aid to Ukraine is $80.9 billion, and that splits into military and humanitarian and economic assistance. Humanitarian and economic assistance is actually the only money that was transferred to the Ukrainian government, and that's a little bit less than $35 billion, 34.85 to be exact. The military assistance, which is $46 billion, that money actually stayed in the United States. Ukraine is only getting military equipment. Military assistance to Ukraine is delivered through 3 different funds. Number 1 is PDA, Presidential Drawdown Authority. Then there are USAI, Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, and FMF. Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative was created specifically to help Ukraine, where foreign military funding is a long-standing program that the United States is using to help our allies in other countries. Presidential Drawdown Authority is an authority. That means that the president has an authority to provide military assistance up to the limit specified by the program. In this case, that would be $25.5 billion. There's also money associated with this form of assistance, and that money is being used by Department of Defense to reimburse itself and replenish stock that was delivered to Ukraine. Most of the time, Ukraine is receiving munition that is 5, 10, 15 years old. And most of the time, we have no need for that sort of munition. This is too old for our own need, and most likely it will be kept in storage until we'll be spending additional money destroying that unnecessary gear. As of the moment of this recording, only $19 billion have been actually delivered to Ukraine. We still have about $4.8 billion in presidential drawdown authority. USAI and FMF are long-term commitments. The money under these programs goes to various contracts, and when those contracts are fulfilled, the equipment procured is being delivered to Ukraine. As of right now, we estimate about $3 to $4 billion under USAI program was delivered to Ukraine. The rest, to the best of our understanding, is still under procurement. That money is being used here in the United States to create jobs. To recap this overview, out of roughly $114 billion that Congress has allocated for Ukraine, only $35 billion were used as money directly to Ukraine to help Ukraine government with their humanitarian and economic needs. So as of right now, Ukraine has received roughly $19 billion under PDA program and between $3 and $4 billion under USAI. So altogether, $23 billion worth of military equipment went to Ukraine. All right, now that we got the basics out of the way, let's do a deep dive into how military assistance money came about. To do that, we're going to go up the page, and right under the first table on the military aid page, there's a little link down below. It says data set. We're going to open it in a new tab. And down below, we're going to click on the money tab. And this is a Google Doc with the details. So let's start with PDA. And as a reminder, PDA is instant help. It's right over here. We have it marked as $25.5 billion. And again, this is money for instant help. So the president has authority to take money of this stockpile of US weapons and ship it to Ukraine. PDA, and this is this column over here, PDA is actually not money, that's an authority. So president is permitted to give articles up to the amount listed in the PDA. However, we also need to reimburse Department of Defense for the money spent on the articles. And over here, this is the next column over here is PDA replenishment. This is the money that was appropriated to reimburse Department of Defense. Now, this is not money to Ukraine. This is money to the Department of Defense. They will use it to get whatever is appropriate according to modern standards. This is not going to be a one-to-one replenishment of old equipment that went to Ukraine. Of course, we don't need anything that is already 10, 15 years old. We need modern equipment. So let's look at PDA. So $3 billion were appropriated initially. It was right before the war started in December of 2021. Then later, the amount was increased to 11 billion, and that's for year 2022. Then there was another appropriation for $3,700,000,000 for year 2023, and that happened in September of 2022. And then we got additional funds, increasing the amount for 2023 to $14.5 billion. So the total amount listed on the graph is a sum of 2022 cap and 2023 amount. If we follow links here, we'll get to the appropriate documents specified by appropriation committees. So if you can see the URL up here, that's appropriations.house.gov, and we can, let's see, scroll down below here, $3.5 billion to replenish U.S. stock of equipment sent to Ukraine through drawdown. And that's the $3.5 billion up here. That's replenishment money. We can follow the next link, and let's see where that money is. So over here, we can see replenishment of U.S. stock, $9 billion to replace U.S. stock of equipment sent to Ukraine through drawdown authority. And we can do the same thing for year 2023. But again, $25.5 billion was appropriated by the Congress as a maximum amount that can be spent on equipment given to Ukraine, where the Department of Defense got reimbursed. The difference between these two numbers has to do with the counting for the Department of Defense. But again, as you can see, these numbers are very close. Now, where it gets interesting is, so at some point, the Department of Defense discovered a mistake. They called it an accounting error. And that accounting error amounted to $6.2 billion. What was the nature of this accounting error? So you can reimburse Department of Defense using two possible strategies. You can use replacement cost analysis, and you can use whatever the remaining cost of the equipment after depreciation. So, for example, if you go and buy yourself a used car, let's say you buy a 2013 Toyota Highlander, well, you're probably going to end up paying maybe 8, maybe 10 grand based on the today's cost of that vehicle. However, if you go and you buy yourself a brand new Toyota Highlander 2023 model, you would probably be looking more like $40,000+. So obviously, there's a lot of difference between replacement cost and the cost of your used equipment after depreciation. We don't know how the reimbursement is happening. We have no idea how Department of Defense is replenishing its own stock. So for that reason, this column is empty for us. But we have this $1 billion down below, and what that is, there was a press conference. You can zoom in a little bit here. So there was a press conference on November 9, where Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh was asked a question about how much money is left for Ukraine. So right down below, she mentioned two numbers. So one of them is 95% of supposedly $62.3 billion that we had in Ukraine supplemental resources. And according to Sabrina, only 5% of that money is remaining. And she also mentioned a $1 billion left in replenishment for US stock. And she did say that we used up all the USAI funding. So that's where this $1 billion comes from. It comes from the announcement by Pentagon official Sabrina Singh. So if we go back to our website over here, as you can see, we have $4.83 billion listed as carryover funds still available, whereas Sabrina mentioned $1 billion. So there are almost $4 billion worth of difference. And the reason for that is exactly this situation here with accounting error. So Department of Defense was spending money considering that it's getting replacement cost value for those old articles that were shipped to Ukraine. And by the time the error was discovered, some money was spent and there was not enough left to replenish the stock. So that's where the difference comes from. We still have about $4.8 billion available in authorization and only $1 billion available in replenishment. So this is something important to understand. And Sabrina is also complaining in her statement that we need to be more considerate of the little money left. She's complaining that we don't have enough funds. And if we look at this second graph down below, we can see how the packages given distributed to Ukraine got smaller and smaller over time. So if earlier in the year our aid to Ukraine was averaging about $1 billion and some change here, the latest several packages are quite small. So and this is a November number, and by now I believe it's more like $250 million. Where over here it's still 013. So this number hasn't been updated yet on the website. Now, Sabrina, in her statement, she mentioned $62.3 billion. So let's try to understand where that money comes from. So over here, we got roughly $44 billion. And let's see how this number is calculated. So this is the PDA cap that was notified. That's over here is USAI funds and FMF money to Ukraine. So together they add up to $44 billion. We're still a little short of 62. So to understand where the rest of that money is, we're going to look at this tab over here, budget by bill, and this table over here sums up the category listed on our website as other. Okay, so see the other section down below, $32.91 billion. And we briefly talked about that section. That's money that was never meant for Ukraine. It was appropriated by the Congress because of a major war in Europe started by Russia. And these are all relevant expenses that we need to account for. So that's US Army in Europe, some additional needs of Department of Defense. So adding these two numbers together, that's about $18 billion. There are other money that went to, in this case, global food insecurity, $5 billion, military aid to our European friends, our allies, through FMF fund, another $3 billion. $2 billion, 2.4 actually went to help Ukrainian refugees here in the United States, and there are some other miscellaneous expenses that were not related to Ukraine. But we were concerned about the $62.5 billion, and if we add Department of Defense needs in Europe and US Army needs in Europe, 16.7 plus 1.5, that gives us roughly $18 billion. And this is the money we are missing over here to get us up to $62 billion. So that's how we understand this number came about. So Sabrina did mention money that was direct aid to Ukraine and money that was meant for US Army in Europe. Now, she is probably mentioning again the budget that she has available from the point of view of the Department of Defense. And from her point of view, she had $62.3 billion, and that's her budget. That was her budget, and there's only $1 billion left under PDA to get Department of Defense reimbursed. And again, all of these supplemental funds, they were allocated because of our needs in Europe, because of global hunger situation, because of the war in Europe. And of course, a lot of that money went directly to Ukraine, but not all of it. Before we move on to USAI, let me explain real quickly what happened here to $1.6 billion. So the way cap or authorization works is that because this is not money, this is authorization, it is not attached to any fiscal year. And this authorization does not expire as long as Congress is notified that the money is going to be used. And apparently sometime in 2022, that amount was not notified. So for that reason, it shows up on our graph over here as expired funds. So we don't believe that money will ever be available again. The graph over here has $20.5 billion listed as both USAI and FMF funds. So over here, we can get that number by adding together these two funds. So this is USAI, this is FMF. USAI is money allocated for contracts. So this goes to US arms manufacturers, and they execute those contracts, creating jobs here in the United States. And their procured munitions is sent to Ukraine after contract is finished. So there's not much really to talk about USAI. This is the money appropriated, and all of it, according to Sabrina Singh, is used. It doesn't mean that contracts have been fulfilled. Used implies that the Department of Defense already has usage for that money. They were appropriated for specific needs. They may be under contract already. Some of that perhaps is already done and delivered to Ukraine.
and some of it may not even be under contract, but it was decided how the money is going to be used. We estimate between $3 and $4 billion out of USA funds that were already delivered to Ukraine. Most of it is still being procured. FMF fund is a little bit more confusing because it has money not just for Ukraine, but also for other foreign assistance. So what we know for sure is how much of the allocated money is definitely meant for Ukraine, and that's $1.6 billion. We also know that about 2.4 in the overall FMF bill are definitely not for Ukraine. And then there are funds that could be used for Ukraine. They not necessarily available. They could be used for something else, but potentially some of this money could be used for Ukraine. In our estimates, because we're in on the conservative side, we're only listing the actual money that is definitely assigned to Ukraine when we report on the available funds. And as far as we understand, all of this money is already been assigned and possibly is under contract. We do not believe any munitions were delivered to Ukraine under FMF. Once again, $46 billion for military assistance to Ukraine, minus 1.6 that has expired, unfortunately, gives us $44.4 billion that can be used for Ukraine. We estimate that about $3 to $4 billion under USAI program were delivered to Ukraine. We estimate that $19 billion worth of military gear under PDA was delivered to Ukraine. Together, that gives us roughly $23 billion that we believe were delivered to Ukraine under PDA and USAI programs. And therefore, again, the $44 billion over here is a sum of PDA cap money, the USAI total funds, and FMF. So hopefully this clears up a little bit the question of how money for Ukraine is being allocated. We have $23 billion worth of military equipment already in Ukraine. We have $35 billion in humanitarian and economic aid. So together that gives us 58 or so $billion in assistance to Ukraine that's already been delivered. And that's about half of the total of $114 billion, roughly $114 billion that is being advertised most of the time when we read various reports, articles, and documents by the government officials. Thank you for watching.